Have you ever looked at something like, I don't know, the pyramids or Stonehenge and thought, whoa, how did they even do that?
Absolutely. It's like these ancient structures whisper secrets of forgotten knowledge, you know?
Right, like there's got to be more to the story than what's in the textbooks, and that's what we're diving into today.
Yes, a deep dive into some of the most mind-blowing theories about ancient architecture and energy systems.
And it's all based on what you, our amazing listener, sent us. Stuff about ancient energy grids, the idea that those beautiful 19th century buildings were actually part of a global power network,
Oh yeah, those theories are fascinating.
and Liley lines, those mysterious energy lines connecting ancient sites. Plus, some buzz about a potential new discovery at Giza. It's a lot to unpack.
It is. But that's what we're here for, right? We'll break down these theories, explore the evidence, and hopefully spark some aha moments.
Exactly. So first up, let's talk about this lost global energy grid theory.
Okay, shoot.
Well, our research suggests that some people believe those incredible, intricate buildings from the 1800s, like the grand cathedrals and stuff,
Mm.
weren't just for aesthetics.
You mean they were more than just pretty buildings?
Right. The theory proposes that those ornate details, the domes, the spires, all of it, could have been functional parts of a worldwide electromagnetic energy system.
Wow. So like giant energy receivers or something.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting because it involves this old concept called the ether, which was thought to be this invisible medium that filled space and carried electromagnetic waves.
Oh, right. Like the stuff light was supposed to travel through before Einstein came along.
Exactly. Well, some people think those 19th century buildings were designed to tap into that ether energy somehow.
I see. And I guess that's why this theory often comes bundled with the mud flood idea, right?
You got it. Have you ever seen those old photos where entire cities like Paris or London are buried in mud, like way more than just dirt on the streets?
Yeah, those are weird.
Yeah.
It's like they got hit by a massive wave of mud or something.
That's what some folks are suggesting, a mud flood event that wiped out this advanced civilization and buried its technology. And the crazy part is that many of those ornate buildings are still standing, seemingly undamaged.
Yeah, that doesn't really add up with typical flooding, does it? So how do they explain that?
Well, it gets even wilder. They connect this mud flood to a great reset, a major global catastrophe that supposedly wiped the slate clean, causing us to lose all this ancient knowledge.
A global reset, huh? So like a massive earthquake or something.
That's one possibility, or maybe something even more dramatic. And there's also the strange connection to the unusually high number of orphans in the 19th century.
Okay, I'm following so far. So what about sound? I remember you mentioning something about sound playing a role in this energy grid.
You're right. This is where cymatics comes in. It's the study of how sound vibrations can create visible patterns. The theory suggests that buildings, especially cathedrals, were designed to use sound, like bells, organ music, even specific carvings, to manipulate that ether and direct the flow of energy.
So like the buildings were giant instruments tuning into the Earth's energy using sound. That's crazy. But there's more, right? You mentioned something about water, too.
Oh, yeah. Water was also supposedly a big part of this ancient system. They called it living waters. The theory is that water could be charged with energy, maybe through sound frequencies and used to power things.
Interesting. So those elaborate fountains and canal systems weren't just for show.
Right. They could have been functional components of the energy grid.
Wow. So we've got architecture, the ether, mud floods, a great reset, sound, and water. What else is in this mix?
Oh, just wait. We've got alchemy and mercury, too. According to our research, mercury played a vital role in this ancient energy system.
Mercury. Isn't that pretty dangerous stuff?
Yeah, but it also has some really unique conductive properties. The theory is that ancient alchemists knew how to use mercury to control and manipulate energy flows.
I see. So they saw it more than just a toxic metal.
Exactly. It was a key ingredient in their advanced tech, at least according to this theory. And then there's the symbolism. All that intricate artwork wasn't just decoration, it was supposedly loaded with hidden meaning about this lost knowledge.
Like a secret code hidden in plain sight.
Kind of like those lions, eagles, griffins, even the swastika, they're all interpreted as symbols representing different aspects of this ancient energy system.
Oh, wow. Like the swastika, which was originally a positive symbol, is said to have represented a vortex, a swirling energy pattern.
Exactly, but that's not even the wildest part.
There's more. Lay it on me.
Buckle up. There's this thing called the moon map theory. Some people believe that the surface features of the moon actually resemble the continents of Earth, like some kind of giant
A
reflection.
reflection of Earth? How is that even possible?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And it leads to this even more out there idea that the moon might not even be a solid object, but some kind of plasma phenomenon, like a projection of light and energy.
Whoa, that's a whole other level of weirdness.
I know, right? But it all ties back into this idea of a great reset, a massive cataclysm that wiped out this advanced civilization and its knowledge.
Wow, that's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. So that's the lost global energy grid theory in a nutshell. 19th century buildings as energy receivers, mud floods, a great reset, sound and water as tools, alchemy, hidden symbolism, and even a moon that might not be what we think it is.
It's definitely a wild ride. But let's shift gears for a moment. What about ley lines? What's the deal with those?
Right, so ley lines are these hypothetical energy lines that supposedly crisscross the globe. And the theory is that ancient people knew about these lines and built their structures along them to tap into that energy.
So it's like an invisible energy grid connecting ancient sites.
Precisely. And it's not just one culture that had this idea. Native Americans had spirit lines, Eastern cultures had dragon lines, and the Aboriginal peoples of Australia had dream lines.
Hmm, that's fascinating. It's like there's a common thread running through all these different cultures.
Exactly. And the theory is that places like the pyramids of Egypt, Stonehenge, and countless others weren't built randomly. They were strategically placed along these ley lines.
I see. So what were they using this ley line energy for?
Well, that's up for debate. Some say spiritual purposes, others say astrological or practical uses. It's all pretty speculative, but still fascinating to think about.
It is. So is the theory saying that only ancient sites are on ley lines?
Actually, it gets even more interesting. Some proponents of this theory believe that modern structures, like Tesla's labs, nuclear power plants, and even military bases, are also built on ley lines.
Really? Like they're intentionally tapping into this ancient energy system?
That's the implication, although it's hard to prove, of course, but it does make you wonder if there's something to it.
It definitely does. So we've got this lost global energy grid, Hoyle lines. What else is there? Didn't you mention something about a discovery at Giza?
Oh, yeah, that was making the rounds online a while back. The claim was that there were these 8 massive cylindrical columns discovered beneath the Pyramid of Khafre.
8 columns. Wow. What were they made of? What did they look like?
Well, that's where things get a bit murky. We tried to track down the source of this claim, and it turns out it mainly came from online discussions and a press release related to a conference.
So not exactly peer-reviewed scientific journals.
Right, and when we looked into actual scientific reports, like a 2022 paper that used radar technology to map the internal structure of the Great Pyramid, there was no mention of these 8 columns.
So was this paper looking at the right pyramid? I thought the claim was about Khafre, not the Great Pyramid.
You're right, it was a different pyramid. But even the press release from the Khafre project, which claimed to have found a huge underground city, didn't mention these 8 columns specifically.
That's weird. You'd think that would be a pretty big deal to mention, right?
You'd think so. But despite all the hype, there's still no official, verified report confirming the existence of these columns.
So it's another case of take it with a grain of salt until there's solid evidence.
Exactly. Speaking of evidence, let's move on to a theory that does have some interesting potential connections to real-world findings. Ancient light and sound technology.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's this about?
Well, the idea is that ancient civilizations were way more advanced than we give them credit for when it comes to understanding and using light and sound. Like way, way more advanced.
Like laser beams and sonic weapons advanced.
Maybe not that extreme, but close. The theory is that they used focused sunlight with massive lenses and mirrors to cut, melt, and fuse stone.
Wow. Like a giant magnifying glass?
Kinda, and there's some evidence that supports this. You know how some ancient structures have these glazed, glassy surfaces?
Vitrified stone, right?
Yep. That's thought to be caused by intense heat, and some people think it's proof that ancients were harnessing solar energy for incredible feats of engineering.
I see. So were they like sun worshippers in a literal sense?
That's what some people propose. The idea is that sun worship wasn't just a religious thing, but a way to encode and pass down knowledge about solar technology.
So those obelisks and temples aligned with the solstices and equinoxes might have been more than just ceremonial.
Right. They could have been functional parts of this ancient tech system. And then there are those mysterious artifacts like the Nimrod lens, the Baghdad battery, and the Roman dodecahedra.
I've heard of those. They're pretty strange.
They are, and this theory claims that those were actually components of lost optical and energy devices, not just random objects.
Hmm. So we've got potential evidence of advanced solar technology and strange artifacts that might have been something more than we thought. Where does sound fit into all this?
Sound plays a huge role too. Our research points to things like sound chambers inside pyramids, the hypogeum in Malta, which is this underground structure with this weird 111 hertz resonance, and all those carefully arranged stone circles that produce specific sounds.
I see. They're suggesting that ancient people really knew how to use sound and acoustics in their structures. But what was the purpose?
Well, here's where it all comes together. The theory of a unified global energy grid powered by interconnected light and sound technologies. The pyramids, Stonehenge, Angkor Wat all linked up through Galilei lines and tuned to the Earth's natural frequencies, like a giant symphony of energy.
That's an incredible idea. A global network of ancient sites working together, using light and sound to harness and distribute energy.
Exactly. And as with the other theory, there's the element of suppressed knowledge, the idea that this incredible technology was intentionally hidden or forgotten, and we're only now starting to rediscover it.
Wow. It's amazing how these seemingly separate theories we've discussed, the 19th century grid, Ley lines, that Giza discovery, and this light and sound tech, all kind of touch on the same themes, don't they?
They really do. It's all about challenging conventional history, re-examining ancient structures, and considering the possibility of lost knowledge. And at the heart of it all is this question of how ancient civilizations interacted with and utilized energy.
Totally. And I think that's the most exciting part. We're forced to reconsider what we think we know about the past and entertain these fascinating, mind-blowing possibilities.
Right. So for you, our listener, what stands out the most from all this? Does any of it resonate with you?
It's a lot to absorb. But even if just a fraction of these theories hold some truth, it could revolutionize our understanding of history and technology.
Absolutely. So here's something to think about. What if those myths and legends we dismiss as fantasy are actually distorted echoes of a far more advanced ancient world than we can currently imagine?
What if those seemingly impossible feats of engineering were accomplished with technologies we haven't even rediscovered yet, or maybe even forgotten we ever had? It's a question worth pondering.
Absolutely. And until our next deep dive, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep an open mind.